Chapter 3, Tyrant Swordfish. The chilled pasta I made ended up turning into a very early dinner for our party. We were all exhausted thanks to the Charybdis incident, well, all of us meaning all of us except for my familiars, so we went straight to bed after the meal was done. I, for one, was out like a light barely a minute after lying down and closing my eyes, and I suspect the same was true of ARC's members. I had a nice, restful night's sleep and woke up bright and early the next morning feeling thoroughly refreshed. The members of ARC seemed to have slept like logs as well and were in considerably higher spirits when they woke up. In Gadino's words, even if we wanted to turn around and go home, we'd have no chance of making the trip out of this place on our own. Plus, I now have a new appreciation for the fact that as long we're with you, we'll make it through this in one piece. We'll be sticking with you to the bitter end. All of his companions smiled and nodded in emphatic agreement as well. I wasn't sure if they'd resigned themselves to their fates, or if they were just looking at things from a more long-term perspective than before, but either way, I couldn't help but feel a little awkward about the whole situation. After all, I knew very well that my familiars wouldn't be satisfied unless we cleared the whole dungeon from top to bottom. Unless we found a teleportation circle or some other means of getting back to the surface in a single jump, there was no way we'd be pulling out partway through. Well, anyway, let's have some breakfast, I said, for lack of anything more encouraging to contribute. For breakfast, I decided to make a light, Western-style assortment consisting of plain omelets, consommé with veggies in it, and buttery bread rolls. That, needless to say, was the menu for me and ARC. The gluttonous quartet got gigant Minotaur steak bowls instead, at their request. Then, after everyone had finished off their breakfasts and everyone other than me had seconds on top of that, Sway grew to its massive, enlarged form and we set out into the ocean once more. The sun's brilliant rays beat down upon us, and the sea shone a calm, beautiful shade of marine blue. If it were just us and the ocean, then I really couldn't have asked for nicer circumstances. This, however, was a dungeon, and that meant it was only a matter of time before things started going wrong. "Hey, did anyone else see something move out there?" Sigvard said as he pointed off into the distance at what seemed to be some sort of shadowy presence in the sea, just barely visible as it drifted along. I looked out in the direction he'd indicated and squinted as I tried to make the shadowy something out more clearly. "Yeah, whatever that is, it's moving all right," I confirmed. "I see it too," said Gadino, who'd turned to look as well. "Looks like a dorsal fin, maybe," Gideon added. "A dorsal fin?" I repeated apprehensively. I had a bad feeling about that possibility, and lo and behold, the moment the thought crossed my mind. Splash! The shadowy presence leaped out of the sea with a mighty spray of water. "ASS swordfish?" I yelped. There was no mistaking its distinctively pointed bill. I'd watched celebrities catch swordfish on fishing TV shows plenty of times, so I knew they were big fish, but still. Come on. That thing's way too huge. This must be some sort of forced perspective thing, right? Counting its pointed bill, it looked like it was over 30 meters long at least, even from this distance. I think that's probably a tyrant swordfish," Gadino quietly muttered. "A tyrant swordfish? Right. I read about them in a book once. They're considered A-ranked monsters because they only live in the open sea, which makes them really easy to avoid, but if you're unlucky enough to run into one mid-voyage, they're just as hard to deal with as a kraken would be. Supposedly, a single thrust of one of those pointed bills is all it takes to sink a galleon." "A single thrust?" Gideon marveled. "I can't swim, by the way," Sigvard noted, looking just as gobsmacked. "It's coming," shouted Fyodora, who'd been quiet up until that point. "Master, a really big fish is coming this way." "What off?" I wailed. The tyrant swordfish really was swimming straight at us, leaving huge white-crested waves in its wake. But while I was panicking... "Got it!" "Sway!" I yelped in surprise all over again. Before I knew it, Sway had wrapped one of its tentacles around the tyrant swordfish's pointed bill. "Huh! Hoo-hoo!" Sway squealed in confusion. The tyrant swordfish barely even seemed to notice the slime's tentacle and kept barreling straight toward it, point first. Instead of holding the fish back, Sway's grip on the monster's bill led to Sway itself being propelled backward through the water at the same rate the tyrant swordfish was advancing. All right, looks like it's up to me to finish it off. Stay just like that, Sway, Dora-chan called out. A moment later. Shwick. A pillar of ice easily as sharp as the swordfish's bill came crashing down, skewering the massive fish straight through. Ah! Sway wanted to beat up the big fishy. Hey, what are you shouting at me for? See if I help you next time you're in a bind. Yeah, honestly, it feels silly for you guys to be fighting over a monster you could finish off without breaking a sweat. Guess there was no reason for me to panic in the first place. I felt my nerves start to relax again, and I could tell that ARC's members were in the same boat. Welp. Guess I didn't need to worry after all, Gadino said. When it comes down to it, we might be safer here than we would be in a fortified castle, Gideon added. Did JA notice that the Fenrir and the ancient dragon slept through all that? Guess they knew the slime and the little dragon could handle it just fine, Sigvard noted. This is ridiculous, Theodora concluded. All I can say is fair enough. Oh, that, and you're the last person I want to hear that from, directed at Theodora specifically. I sighed, then sent a telepathic message over to Sway and Dora-chan, who were still quibbling over the swordfish. Okay, quit arguing, you two. Don't you want to see what the fish dropped? Oh, just a second, Sway said. Here it is. A moment later one of Sway's tentacles emerged from the sea, grasping a large lump that it brought over to me. Oh, looks like it dropped some tyrant swordfish meat, huh? Is that tasty, master? Let's find out. One sec. I appraised the meat and learned that it was indeed supposed to taste quite nice, if you cooked it properly. Yup, looks like. I bet it'd be good as teriyaki, or with a garlic and soy sauce seasoning, maybe, I said, reasoning that the classic swordfish dishes I knew about would probably work well with it. Wait a minute. Sway, did he just say it'd taste good? Yeah. Master says it'll be yummy. All right. In that case, let's bag a few more of 'em. Yeah. Huh. I hate to rain on your parade, guys, but there can't be all that many of those swimming around in this ocean. Hell yeah. I'll fly around and find some more. Dora-chan shouted as he bolted off into the sky. There's one. Another fin, up ahead and to the right. After it, Sway. Okay. Wait, what? Really? Are there actually enough tyrant swordfish nearby to find another one instantly? Wait, no. Dora-chan, Sway, what are you two doing? Don't I get a say in this? Fel, Gan, wake up. What? Fel grunted irritably. Was there truly a need to interrupt my nap? I second that, my liege, Gun grumbled. It's very rude to disturb one's slumber. This is no time to be napping. Dora-chan and Sway found a monster, and now they're dragging us all over the place. I can't stop them. Dora and Sway are? Then you are at no risk. Let them do as they will. What do you mean, let them do as they will? They're leading us in the opposite direction of where we wanted to go. Oh, well, that hardly poses an issue. Fel and I will know the correct path just as well after their little venture as we do now. Indeed. And there you have it. Just like that, Fel and Gun nodded right back off again. Oh, would you two please try to keep them under control at least once? You hear that, Sway? Fel and Gun are down for this too. Let's do it. Let's do it. Sway cheered, immediately picking up the pace. Wooer, nope. I don't approve. Dora-chan, Sway, stoop. I shouted in vain. Meanwhile. Yeah, nothing we can do about this, Gadino said. Not a chance in hell we'll be able to stop 'em, Sigvard agreed. All we gotta do is stay on our toes and try not to die, Gideon added. Right. Just stay alive, Theodora said. Judging by the calm on ARC's members' faces, They were starting to reach an understanding that this was just how it went in my party. Whew! This isn't the same as the big fishy from before. Hey, no kidding. Can we even eat this thing? Looks pretty damn nasty, if you ask me. Dora-chan and Sway had locked on to another fin poking through the surface of the sea. It had turned out to belong to a massive shark monster, and before I knew it, said monster had also locked on to us, opening its gargantuan jaws wide and making a beeline in our direction. It very clearly intended to swallow us whole. Hey, guys! Not the right time for a chat. Do something about these, I wailed, flopping over onto my backside as the shark closed in. Gah! Fel and Gan, on the other hand, didn't so much as budge in the face of the oncoming monster. In fact, neither of them bothered to do more than open a single eye to assess the situation before going right back to sleep again. Excuse me, guys? How is it even possible for you to nap through this? Wake up, already. It's okay, master. Sway'll beat it up real quick. Take this. Sway shouted as it fired several acid bullets directly down the shark's massive gullet, just seconds before it would have eaten us alive. A trio of incredibly loud splashing sounds rang out as the acid bullets hit home, and the shark flipped over backward, snapping its toothy mouth shut and flailing its fins as it slammed into the water's surface. Whoa, I shouted. The shark's frenzied writhing had kicked up a series of enormous waves, and ARC's members and I had to crouch down and cling to Sway's back once again to avoid getting thrown off. Ooh, it's all wavy now. This is so much fun. Sway squealed with glee as the waves tossed it to and fro. It was surreal, to say the least. Meanwhile, the giant shark's movements grew duller and slower with each passing moment. It finally came to a complete standstill, floating belly up on the surface of the sea. Oh, it's over, Sway whined. Oh, it disappeared. Found them. Once again, a tentacle burst out from the water. Here, master. All right, thanks, I said as Sway passed me the shark's drops, a sharp, jagged tooth and a large magic stone. Hey, dang it, Sway, you didn't even give me a chance at that one. The next one's mine. Keep your slimy tentacles off it. Boo. Don't you boo me. It's not fair if you take on all the monsters. Oh, okay. Sway'll be good and let you have the next one, Dora-chan. The one after that Sway's, though. Wait. Does that mean? Guys. Are you planning on going after more of those things? Duh. We've got to keep it up until we get some meat from another of those fish, at least. We'll get tons of tasty meat for you, master. Clearly, neither of them were even close to tired of hunting yet, unlike me. Enna, it's fine, you don't have to do that. We already got swordfish meat, after all. That's plenty, in my book. You're kidding, right? Since when was more food ever a bad thing? Sway wants lots and lots of tasty food. Right. Okay, let's track down the next one, Dora-chan said, then took off once more. Let's see. There's one. Another fin, forward and to the left. Go for it, Sway. Okay. No, seriously, wait. We already have plenty. This way, Sway. Got it. Dora-chan led the way and Sway happily followed along, sailing at a rapid enough pace to leave waves splashing in its wake. The two of them were so worked up about their hunt, it was like they literally couldn't hear me at all. I sighed. Well, that's that. There's no stopping those two, at this point, I said to myself. Guess we'll just have to ride this out until they're satisfied. I turned to glance at ARC's members, intending to apologize. Oh, great. Only to find all four of them just sitting there, silently smiling. Apparently, fear had more or less lost all meaning to them at that point. What a day, were the first words out of my mouth when we made landfall on the island where we'd be camping that night. It had been an exhausting day, in more ways than one. In the end, Dora-chan and Sway had dragged us along on their hunting excursion or, well, fishing excursion all the way until dusk. The tyrant swordfish they'd been trying to track down had proved awfully elusive, in the end, Though then again, it sort of went without saying that monsters like that wouldn't be swimming around en masse. To make a long story short, Dora-chan and Sway had been less than satisfied with their unimpressive results, and would ended up wasting the whole day on the endeavor. We had obtained 2 more Tyrant swordfishes worth of meat thanks to all that hard work, but the path we'd had to take to get them was roundabout, to say the least. The fact that Dora-chan wasn't capable of sensing monsters like Fel and Gan certainly hadn't helped. His only means of locating the swordfish was looking for their fins sticking up out of the ocean, and Tyrant swordfish were far from the only finned monsters out there. In fact, they weren't even the majority. We'd almost been eaten by a monster that looked like a giant orca, followed by a monster that looked like a whale with the sort of huge, jagged teeth you only saw on carnivores, and on and on. It had been a miserable experience, all around. Despite all the trials and tribulations we went through, Fel and Gan had insisted that Dora and Sway had everything under control and had slept the whole afternoon away. The members of ARC, meanwhile, had ended up being so burnt out by the repeated monster encounters that I was sort of afraid they might literally crumble to ash. Yeah, today sure was rough, all right. I really wish I could just go straight to bed, but first. What will we be eating tonight? Fel asked. The fish that Dora and Sway caught, perhaps? It seems they caught more of them, so I'm certain we have an ample quantity, Gun said. Yes, indeed. It was supposed to be delectable, was it not? Make that yourself, Fel, and, wait a second. You two were listening awfully closely to all those conversations considering you were supposedly asleep at the time, weren't you? I jabbed. I'd meant it 100% sarcastically, but Fel and Gan just steamrolled straight over me by insisting that, yes, it was only natural that they'd hear us that well in their sleep. They were smirking while they said it too. You really think it's gonna be that easy, don't you, you insensitive jerks? I thought, but it wasn't long before Fel and Gan got just the backup they needed. Hey, I wanna try the fish we caught today too, Dora-chan piped up. Sway too. Sway agreed. That made 4 out of 4 familiar votes cast for Tyrant swordfish for dinner. I sighed. Okay. I'll make the fish you caught for dinner. I'm granting your request here, though, and that means that you have to grant my request too, got it? Your request? And what would that be? Fel asked. Don't give me that condescending look, Fel. We're taking a break. 1 full day off, right here on this island. It's exhausting spending every single day out on the ocean, so we'll spend tomorrow relaxing instead of exploring. How's that sound? The moment I made my proposal, ARC's members' eyes lit up with excitement. Gadino, Gideon, Sigvard, and Theodora were clearly all just as worn out as I was. Mph, very well, then. That was easy. Surprisingly so. Whoa, hold the phone. You sure you're okay with not going anywhere? Dora-chan said. Someone had to object, I guess. Quiet now, Dora. This is for the best. I'll explain why later, Gun said. What's that mean? Later. Trust me. I'll explain everything to you and Sway, and you'll understand then. So, that was clearly suspicious. Suspicious indeed. But, well, it worked out, one way or another. Getting the day off I so desperately needed was the most important thing. All right. Tomorrow, we're taking it easy. Now then, I think it's time to cook up some Tyrant swordfish for dinner. Tomorrow, I'd finally have the day off I'd been longing for. I was going to spend the entire day lounging around and ignoring anyone who tried to complain about it, and to enable my leisure time, I was planning on serving nothing but pre-made meals. I figured that the least I could do to make up for that was go a little fancy with tonight's dinner and make a real swordfish banquet. When I inspected the Tyrant swordfish meat, I found that it really was identical to the swordfish meat I knew, size accepted, of course. That meant I just had to make swordfish teriyaki and cook up some rice to go along with it. A garlic soy sauté seemed like it could be good as well, and if I took it up a notch by making it a garlic butter soy sauté, it would pair just as incredibly with rice as the teriyaki would. Those both seemed like great ideas, but so far, All of my plans revolved around grilled meat dishes that didn't have much going on beside the swordfish. Some variety would be nice. Ah, I know. I can make a veggie and swordfish stir-fry. Swordfish was very mild in flavor, and its meat tended to stand up to cooking nicely without crumbling. It seemed like it'd be a really good candidate for stir-frying, all around. What veggies to throw in with it, though? Oh, I know. I bet cucumber would be great. I still had a ton of Albans homegrown cucumbers in stock, and though they weren't the most traditional stir-fry ingredient, I'd found they worked surprisingly well for it in the past. What else? If I want more variety, I could try deep frying some of it. I bet swordfish tatsutage would be pretty tasty. I'd want something a little more refreshing as well if I go that route, though. Maybe a marinated swordfish salad would be nice. Yeah, that should do it. This sounds like a plan. Tonight, I'd be making 5 dishes in total: swordfish, Tyrant swordfish teriyaki, a Tyrant swordfish garlic butter soy sauté, a Tyrant swordfish and cucumber stir-fry, Tyrant swordfish tatsutage, and a Tyrant swordfish salad marinated in a Japanese-style sauce. That would be a lot of cooking to get done, but I had basically all the ingredients I needed already, so I could get started right away. If I ended up needing anything extra, I figured I could just snap it up from my online supermarket on the spot. First up on the docket was making the marinated swordfish salad, then doing some prep work for the tatsutage. I could store the other dishes in my item box the moment they were finished and bring them out still fresh and piping hot whenever I wanted, but those two both needed time for their flavors to meld and their seasonings to soak in. I could handle the rest of the cooking during the time they would have to sit. I kicked things off by making the salad's marinade. I decided to do a Japanese-style marinade this time, which meant using soy sauce as one of the base flavors. I combined soy sauce, vinegar, sugar, olive oil, and coarsely ground black pepper in a bowl, mixed it together, and that was all it took. With the marinade done, I moved on to cutting up the veggies and the Tyrant swordfish. I decided to use a very standard assortment of onions, bell peppers, and carrots for the vegetables, since I had plenty of all of them courtesy of Alban. I sliced the onions thinly, then julienned the peppers and carrots before cutting the Tyrant swordfish into bite-sized chunks. I salted and peppered the swordfish chunks before coating them in potato starch. Then I heated up some olive oil in a frying pan and gave them a nice sear, dumping them into the marinade when they were finished. I lightly stir-fried the veggies as well, adding them to the mixture once they were soft. Finally, I stirred everything together and waited for it to cool down a little so I could store it in my refrigerator. It'd be ready to serve once it was fully chilled. While I waited for the marinade mixture to cool off, I decided to get to work on my tatsutage preparations. I sliced the Tyrant swordfish I'd be using for this dish into bite-sized pieces as well, then combined some grated garlic, grated ginger, soy sauce, sake, and mirin in a bowl. I mixed up the seasoning liquid, then dumped in the Tyrant swordfish meat and lightly massaged it to help the flavors all soak in. In 30 minutes or so, the fish would be nicely seasoned and ready to fry. By that point, the marinade mixture was ready to go into my magic fridge too, which meant I could get to work on the next dish. Think I'll move right along to the swordfish and cucumber stir-fry next. I trimmed the stems off the cucumbers, split them in half lengthwise, and then rubbed some salt into them to draw out their moisture. Then I cut the Tyrant swordfish meat into thin slices, gave them the salt, pepper, and potato starch treatment, and cooked them in an oiled frying pan. Up to this point, the process was more or less the same as how I'd cooked the swordfish for the marinated version. It diverged, however, when I added a seasoning mixture of soy sauce, oyster sauce, sake, mirin, grated ginger, and sesame oil into the pan, continuing to stir-fry until the alcohol was all cooked out. Then I added in the cucumbers and stir-fried for just a little longer to finish off the dish. It came out as an almost Chinese-style stir-fry in the end, and I used all 6 of my Magic Stove's burners to make a massive quantity of it, which I then stored in my item box for later. I'll finish up the tatsutage last, I think, which means that I should move on to the teriyaki or the garlic butter soy sauté. Guess I'll handle the teriyaki first. I sliced some Tyrant swordfish into centimeter-thick pieces, heated some oil in a frying pan, and threw the fish in, searing each piece on both sides. Then I sauced them up with a mixture of soy sauce, sake, mirin, and honey. Sugar would have worked just fine, but I figured that honey would give the teriyaki a certain depth, so I gave it a try instead, stirred it all together, and let it cook a little longer. That's all it took. It couldn't have been an easier dish, especially since the Tyrant swordfish didn't have so much as a trace of unpleasant fishiness to it. Maybe that was because it was so fresh. In any case, I piled the teriyaki onto a plate and stored it in my item box as well. It was time to move along to the Tyrant swordfish garlic butter soy sauté. I sliced up the Tyrant swordfish in the same manner for this dish as I had for the teriyaki, though this time, I gave the pieces a shake of salt and pepper afterward. Then I minced up the garlic, threw it into a frying pan with some butter, and cooked it until it smelled nice and aromatic, at which point I tossed in the swordfish as well. Once both sides of the fish were seared, I added some soy sauce, sake, and mirin, keeping everything moving to make sure nothing burned until the alcohol was all cooked out and the sauce nicely reduced. Finally, I piled the swordfish meat up on a plate, then drizzled the remaining sauce over it. The garlic butter soy sauté didn't exactly pop visually, neither had the teriyaki, for that matter, so I minced up some parsley to sprinkle on top of it as a garnish. Yeah, that's looking good, I thought to myself, then put it straight into my item box for later. Now all that was left was what would almost certainly be the gluttonous quartet's favorite, given its similarity to Karorage, the Tyrant swordfish tatsutage. All I had to do was coat the now thoroughly seasoned Tyrant swordfish pieces in potato starch, then fry them until they were nice and crispy. Okay, that's everything. I finished the last of my plating and was about to bring everything out to serve. I guess you all just couldn't wait, huh? But when I turned around to do so, I found that the gluttonous quartet plus one gluttonous elf were already gathered up behind me. You have made quite an assortment of dishes this time, have you not? Feed them to me at once. And me as well. As soon as possible, if you please. Yeah, I'm famished over here too. Come on, get a move on. Sway wants to eat the fishes right away. I want some too. I couldn't stop from cracking up at their faces, they looked so hungry. I almost expected them to start drooling at any moment as I called over Gideon, and Sigvard, then got to work serving all 5 dishes as quickly as I could manage. The gluttonous quartet plus one elf started chowing down before I knew it. It may not be meat, but it is far from unserviceable. This dish in particular is especially pleasing. Give me more of it, Fell said, barely pausing for long enough to prod the plate with the garlic butter soy sauté on it with his paw. I'm partial to this one most of all, myself. There's just something about fried foods. This would be my next favorite, though, Gun said, indicating the marinated swordfish salad. It was no surprise that he'd taken a liking to the tatsutage. Fried foods were as reliably popular as ever, but I was a little surprised by his second choice. According to him, it has a refreshing quality that makes it the perfect palate cleanser to follow fried foods. These are all pretty awesome, but yeah, I like the fried stuff best. Guess even fish taste great fried, Dora-chan said. I wasn't at all surprised by that choice, though again, I was struck with a renewed appreciation for just how universally beloved fried foods were. Sway likes these. Oh, and these, and these, and these, and these. Sway, that's all of them. Yeah. They're all super yummy, Master. Oh, really? Glad to hear it. I like these and these best. They pair incredibly with the white grains you served. Seconds, please. Oh, so you're joining in with your impressions this time, Theodora? It was kind of amazing that even though she could theoretically only hear Fell's and Gun's voices, she still somehow managed to wait until after Dora-chan and Sway were finished to put in a word herself. This was the one time that she could take a hint, it seemed, and to a rather remarkable degree. Anyway, she likes the teriyaki and the garlic butter soy sauté because they pair well with rice, huh? She really knows her stuff. The way she'd taken the opportunity to casually ask for another helping was quite something too. The title Theodora the Gluttonous Elf was really starting to solidify in my mind for her at this point. As I put together extra helpings of everyone's favorite dishes, I also prepared some Tyrant swordfish teriyaki and a bowl of white rice for myself, bolting down a bite or two whenever I had the chance to steal them. I also snagged some of the tatsutage and a beer to go with it, figuring that it couldn't hurt to indulge a little since we were taking tomorrow off anyway. ARC's members were around, of course, meaning I couldn't drink the beer straight from the bottle, so I poured it into the self-cooling cup I'd bought in Niehoff instead. I'd barely used the thing at all since then, but it was really nice how it kept my drinks perfectly chilled. I wasn't drinking alone, naturally. I'd given Gideon, and Sigvard a pitcher of cold beer and a few cups to drink it from as well, which they'd been enjoying as they powered through their Tyrant swordfish feast. The booze seemed to be getting to them a little already. They were shouting stuff like I'm marking it out alive, no matter what, and me too. No din in this hole, and we're all getting home in one piece. I decided to be the adult in the room and pretend I hadn't heard them. Oh, and I was also surprised when Gen, who I'd assumed would be up for a drink as well, actually turned the offer down. It was strange, to say the least. There was no way he didn't like alcohol, and I couldn't think of any reason the current circumstances would make him abstain. Maybe he's just not in the mood to drink tonight. It happens. More importantly, I finally get a day off tomorrow. I'm gonna take it easy and nap my heart out. Heh, this is gonna be great.